Oh, it's I don't know what it is. We're recording what here on 8/8/24, some generic
That's right.
time of the day. Got a couple of us in the house, or a trio of us in the house tonight, and we're gonna try to talk automotive side hustles, little things that we can do on the side, whether or not you're working in cars or working in IT or cabaret dancer or pinup model, whatever, doesn't matter. Things you could do because you have an interest in the car world and things that could get you deeper involved in some sort of a professional level, whether it is a side hustle that earns you a couple of bucks or a side hustle you're doing for charity and feel good. I think that's the topic we dive right into tonight. Do we want to go anywhere else, or should we get right into the topic?
Well, I mean, we'll get into the topic, but we'll save some of those side hustles that you mentioned till remember after the 9:30 mark for No Driving Gloves After Dark. So
you mean like the automotive mechanic and appraiser and stuff like that, and we'll talk about the pinup model and things like that right now.
Yeah, exactly. Cabaret dancing, and some of the photography that we do on the side. So.
I mean, photography is probably the best way to make an automotive side hustle if you've got any ability with a camera, because people never cease to have photos taken of their car, and in the buying and selling, good photos mean everything on the internet.
Now, a couple of, what is it, 10 million YouTube shorts, and all of a sudden it becomes a business. I think that's where you monetize it. Shorts is 10 million shorts in 90 days, or 10 million views of shorts in 90 days.
Dear Lord, how I don't know. I don't get how that stuff works. I'm gonna have to figure it out.
But tune in after 9:30. We might touch on how you can get some of that.
Okay, good. But Dave brings up a good point there that kind of jesting on the cabaret dancing and all that and the photography. What is it? Boudoir photography is kind of where I was headed with that. But Dave brings in a good point. I mean, a lot of the younger generation that is into photography, I know a number of them that I follow on Facebook that go around photographing automobiles, and they either post it on social media to get the views and the likes, which they can start to monetize. But also, I mean, at least from what I still understand of the print world of magazines and all of that, is that that photography side of it is still a somewhat lucrative business.
Yeah, I wasn't even.
You're not going to make a living on it, but.
Oh no, plenty of people do make living as professional photographers on the automotive side. I mean, I work with a few of them. I mean, if freelancers, you got to hustle. That's the key word in all of this is hustle. There's no passive income to be derived here, but if you can get out on the weekend and shoot a few cars for people that are trying to sell them, I mean, that's a few $100 a crack usually, and that's serious spending cash if you got an automotive hobby to feed.
Now, we've talked about Mob Inc., that local car club here that's doing this massive event now on the first Saturday of every month. It's all the exotics in that. They actually made an effort to, quote, partner with, and I don't know if the photographers or whatever have to, or the influencers have to pay a little bit to have these privileges, but they're doing phenomenal photo shoots. Of course, it's growing the car club business or the car show business for them. But some of these guys are just exploding because of the cars that they're getting and the cooperation the owners are giving them. And I mean, some of this stuff rivals some of the best stuff I've seen on Instagram or any social media and even print advertising. And I say, according to the Chat GPT, which I asked, automotive photography was their 13th listed side hustle, with an estimated income of $100 to $300 per session, which if you were able to book 1 or 2 sessions with somebody just to shoot his car for a car show or, their own use, if you're doing it for your social media, well, you got to get the followers. I mean, that's not a bad, you get 2 a month. That's your car payment, insurance in most cases, and getting you into the car world.
Yeah. And, these kids, I mean, I don't know if I take influencer real seriously as a side hustle, because there's a lot more demand for those positions than there is demand for what they're producing, I think. But the I forgot where I was going with this. The kids are okay because they do get this practice all the time. Like, it's like if you played catch all the time, you'd probably become a pretty good baseball player just by accident. The same deal is true. Like if you video and photograph all of your moments, everything cool you see, like they're just developing a talent that their parents didn't get in the era of 35 millimeter film because it was expensive and you didn't see what you were doing until much later. So, there's a lot of people out there that have got probably more talent than they actually realize with some of this stuff. And then the matter is really marketing yourself to the people who are willing to pay you money for it. And like I said, I favor a little more direct, like Craigslist ad or whatever. Let me photograph your car, $150 a session or whatever. And I mean, people eat that up.
Yeah, but that's a good point, Dave, because I think that's one of the struggles a lot of people have, and I think it's even a struggle that maybe I've had in side hustles and things like that, is figuring out how to market it to the people that have a desire or a need for it, that are willing to pay for it. Because I think a lot of people get lost in the, I'll do it for friends and family or whatever. And I'm not going to charge them money. I'm not, and you wind up not making any money on it. So I think the trick is, like you said, how do you figure out the market that you need to be in? How do you make sure you're getting connected with the owners or the magazines or whoever that are going to want to pay you to do it? So I think that is one of the big tricks.
Yeah, finding your market is everything, in my opinion. It doesn't matter what you do and whether it's a side hustle or your main hustle. You've got to identify your talents, what you can do, what you're willing to do, be above and beyond, in this case, what you do during the day, and then making sure that it's something that people are willing to pay for, and then finding a way to tell them. And, we can't all be a nationally recognized photographer, right? I suppose on some level I am, but I think what's more important for a side hustle is being active in your community right there where people can hand you cash, and not something more ephemeral and nationwide. We all want to be famous, but if what you need is cash, local is where it's at, in my opinion.
And you said it a little bit ago, is shooting cars for people on Facebook Marketplace, or back when I was doing some automotive consulting and listing cars on Bring a Trailer, in that there was really nobody in Birmingham doing that at the time, 4 or 5 years ago. And now we do have people that are the go-to, that if you're going to list your car on Bring a Trailer, I mean, I'll say Matt Farah, and that he does it with his West Side Collector car storage business, but that's easy. In Birmingham, you got to get out, you got to hustle, you got to get your name out there. I'm seeing ads quite often for people to work for some of the dealerships part-time. They just have to, you have to be able to shoot and understand a camera. Don't show up with your iPhone and think you can get the job, even though really an iPhone will shoot as well as most DSLRs anymore. But
especially if you don't know how to run the DSLR, which most people don't.
And you get to learn your white balances and your shutter speeds and your f-stops and all of that. At least be able.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I hear silence.
Yeah, John, we lost your audio. Well, so I'm not sure what
it looks
John's
like a valid point.
I think it's a highly valid point. But yeah, so one of the things I was going to bring up with you, Dave, was, exactly what John just brought up, which was, you mentioned it a little bit ago, and, the younger generations are learning from their, having a camera in their hand all the time, right?
Mhm.
One of the cell phones. So they're learning. But, can we be as successful with one of these as we can be with a DSLR or any type of digital camera? These will take pretty good photos, but if you really want to be a
Oh,
professional and get the best photos, you got to get a real piece of equipment.
I think you're talking diminishing returns. I mean, honestly, my opinion is very few people have need for a big heavy camera on a tripod anymore. I mean, I still use them when I go out and photograph a car because yes, you cannot beat them for overall resolution and potential. But show me a place where you're using all of that potential.
Yeah.
Print is my favorite medium, right? Because it is big and beautiful and high res. Honestly, most of the internet is not anymore. It's viewed on people's phones, it's viewed on Chromebooks. There's just not the demand. I mean, you remember the early days of digital cameras where you could like zoom in and see every little detail. There's no call for that, not commercially.
Yeah.
That's all just ego on our part as photographers to be able to say, yeah, look, I can see every detail of the headlight flutes on this car. It doesn't show up in print. It doesn't show up on the website. Even if you have it on the website, they can't host it that large,
Right.
So where the equipment makes a difference is in the lighting, I think, because that's a thing that photographers have to seek out and learn. And I didn't mean to make this a whole discussion of photography, but it's interesting because that's where I've had to learn. Like I could frame a photo, uh, I could pose a car when I started doing what I do, but the idea of photography as painting with light is as true with cars as it is anything else. Like you have to put the light on the car on any subject, whether it's a person or a car or a building or whatever, in a way that flatters it and carries the spirit of the thing onto the final viewer. And I've even flipped over in professional magazines lately, and the car's parked in the shadow, and it's all muddy, and it's like you're not doing that subject justice. And I don't care whether it's a feature or whether you're trying to sell it to a new owner. You need to make that car look its best, look exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, there are places also, especially in sales, where you need to highlight flaws because you don't want to be accused of hiding a thing, which is something that someone who's doing sales photography for Bring a Trailer or for Hemmings or for an eBay sale or whatever, they have to take a different perspective than someone who's shooting a feature, because someone who's shooting a feature is glorifying that car, and someone who's shooting sales photos is trying to do that car justice so that it can be sold fairly. Because if you're hiding things with the photography and the sale listing, maybe that's what your client wants, but that's not going to be something that's good overall in the buying and selling. And so you have to make sure that you're producing the product that your client needs and is representing you best as a photographer. Or really, that's, I think, something that's true regardless of the side hustle you've got going on. I mean, I can think of lots of other stuff that doesn't involve cameras that could be just as important. I mean, we were talking appraisals before, or title work. I mean, everybody is worried about, how do I get a title for this car that I'm considering buying or this project I'm working on? And, the laws are constantly shifting. And, that's where having a lawyer, a law degree or a lawyer friend really comes in handy, because that stuff all varies state by state. We get asked to do stories on titling all the time, and you just can't, because there's no national standard for it, and it changes all the time. And if you're wrong, you've got liability, and
Yeah.
I don't carry liability insurance for that, so I don't give anybody that type of advice. But it is something that if you were out there, doing some other kind of work, or you just really, really knew the laws there. I mean, you couldn't hold yourself out as a lawyer doing it, obviously, but you can figure out how to do the titling work, which is a real hurdle for a lot of people.
Yeah. Agreed. So we've got John's video back. Do we have John's audio back? We do not.
No audio.
Well, John could just sit there and look, well, like John. So We can, yeah. This is why John is not used as a model for photography with those vehicles we were just talking about, the photography. So, yeah, I mean, that's, definitely one. And of course, going along with that, photography for automotive magazines, things like that. Obviously, if you have talent in writing, if you're a talented writer, if you have the skills of, laying down words, there's always the opportunity to hook up with magazines or publications to be a freelance automotive journalist as well. Maybe write an article here and there, supply it to somewhere like Hemmings or any of the, I myself wrote for Rare and Unique Vehicles magazine over the last about 2 years, a number of articles out of the Lane Motor Museum. So I technically wasn't really freelancing, it was part of my day job, but it is an opportunity that those magazines are always looking for content for them. But taking it further than that, so are websites, right? So are these automotive based websites that need content, need that information to put out. Thinking of the Autopian, the one that, of course, everyone left Jalopnik and all the places and went over to form with Bo Bachman and Torchinsky and those guys. And so there's always opportunities out there, not only for the photos, but also for the words, right? The articles that can go along with those. And I will say, I got to go back and admit, I did write those articles for Rare and Unique Vehicles, and I did all the photography for the cars that I was writing about, and they were all done with this phone right here. And I'll tell you what, you flip through that magazine, and the photos I took on a cell phone look just as good as all the other photos in that magazine. So, going back to what you said, Dave, you can't print the high resolution that some of the digital cameras capture, some diminishing returns, like you said, but another side hustle, which I've also been looking into, is, just content creation of articles for some of these magazines, websites that will pay you a little bit of money for them. John, any comments? Well, we can't see if your mouth is moving. So there you go. Yeah, we still
No
don't have
audible
audio.
ones.
Yeah, no audio on John. So moving over to Dave. So any thoughts on that? And I guess, Dave, why don't we take a minute, because we're now like almost 20 minutes in. We just started the show and started going into this, but we should probably introduce Dave this evening. And so Dave Conwell's joining us tonight as a guest. He's an associate editor at Hemmings Motor News and automotive journalist.
Hemmings Classic Car.
Oh.
I mean, I have written for Motor News, but I primarily write for Hemmings Classic Car. That's one of the glossies.
Hemmings Classic Car. My bad.
Yes. Motor News and Marketplace is the one with all the classifieds ads in it.
Okay.
And it is also an excellent publication, but the editors there are more like Mark McCourt and Dave LaChance. And
Gotcha.
of course,
Well,
Mike
see,
McNess are the editor there.
I think it's just because we grew up with Hemmings Motor News that when I say Hemmings, it just immediately comes out after Motor News. It's just there. So
I understand, but
Yeah.
I gotta always say it's
Yeah.
like, we grew up with Myers Thrifty Acre too, but you can still manage to get the name right.
True.
Sorry, I just got a little pride in the product here. Like Classic Car is my favorite magazine, has been my favorite magazine since long before I worked there. I love the subject matter, I love the format, and I've just long been a fan of Classic Car. And Motor News to me was always a lot of classified ads, and it still is, and it's wonderful for that, because if you need a part or you need a service, I mean, or frankly, if you want to advertise a side hustle, that's where to do it. That's probably where the carburetor guy that John was talking about did most of his advertising, because when you say someone only advertises in print, that can only mean one thing. That means Hemmings Motor News. It's wonderful. And show me a product that's equivalent, because there just isn't one that's still the central place to buy and sell and trade products and services related to old cars. But Classic has really been my jam, because I get to go and photograph the big, beautiful feature stories and write those up. And my favorites are the ones where I get to drive the cars. That's when we were talking originally about, side hustles, I was thinking, how could I just be someone's classic car chauffeur, where I take them out and drive the car that they may themselves be just a little bit afraid of. But because of my mechanical skills, I can chauffeur them around the town fearlessly.
Yeah, I don't think chauffeur's much of a job anymore, unfortunately. I wish it was.
Actually, I have three.
I didn't
friends
say
in
that
town.
it doesn't exist. We know
I'd
chauffeurs
say
do
I
exist.
have
The
three
kind
friends
of
that
chauffeur
actually.
that Dave and I are talking about does not exist anymore.
Oh, I'd say that did part-time chauffeuring for some various people in town.
Well, I mean, they do things now where you can rent a classic car, right? Well, you should be able
Yes.
to rent a driver to go with it, right? I mean, plus some of these cars, like if you drive some kind of pre-war Packard limo, it's not fun in the driver's seat. It's fun in the back seat. So you should be able to ride in the back seat, and I'll just show up in the hat.
What time is it, Derek? Because isn't it?
It's almost
always
9:30. Because so far he said, big beautiful features, and now he's talking about the back seat. So we're getting close to that 9:30 mark for After Dark.
Talking
Wow.
about being more fun in the back seat.
After 9:30,
Yeah.
it's no holes barred. Okay,
The gloves
It's
really come off.
those
Yeah.
gloves. truly come off.
No, you should always keep your glove on. It's no driving gloves after dark, as one of our listeners refers to it.
Nice.
Yeah, where's everybody in the comments tonight, guys? Come on, we know you're out there listening, so
We had a ton of response for this episode.
Comments, guys.
is.
let us know your thoughts on side hustles. What do you side hustle?
Anybody who can
you're gonna
weld
comment,
can have
it's gonna
side
be in
hustles all
print.
day long.
Yeah, and if you're going to comment, remember it's in print, it's on social media, so make sure it's a legal side hustle before you admit to it. So what were you trying to say that whole time, John? Did you have comments?
I don't know what happened. Everything just kind of crashed, and I had no ears and no mouth.
Oh,
Kind of
fantastic.
felt odd.
So
I know
we
you
finished
guys
up
had
the
a good
conversation on photography. We talked a little bit about writing, articles, content for magazines and or websites and blogs and places like that, or whatever they're calling them nowadays.
Yeah, I want to say, I think on one of these lists that I looked at, number 3 was social media influencer, number 4 was podcaster, number 5 was blogger. Those are things you do for fun. You don't do for money. You can try.
Not true. For content creation, it's not a lot of money, but you can get some money for providing articles to places.
It's not necessarily money in a side hustle. If you devote a full-time job effort at it, and with podcasting, for instance, full-time balls to the wall for 3 years is when you'll start seeing a return. That's pretty much the standard with any podcast. I don't care if it's on photography or cars or your Creamy from Ninja or, cooking or anything is, mowing your grass. But, some of the other ones that could be out there, I've had a lot of fun and I've made some money reselling either antique car toys or car parts for people. I found businesses that have an abundance of junk, and then you list them online and you take a commission or a percentage. Or in my most recent endeavors, I actually just go in and buy everything, and I either make the money or I take the loss, and there's no dealing with the phone calls every week. But, they're just a couple of things that, it might take 3 hours a week or 4 hours a week. And some weeks you make $15, some weeks you make $1,000, $1,500. You just never know. A side hustle, and we mentioned the gentleman before in our pre-show talks, Tony Watley. Side hustle millionaire, motivational speaker, business coach, et cetera, et cetera. He made his first $1 million with a internet forum, which really doesn't exist anymore, but that was a side hustle to his oil and gas job. And, he sold that and, over the years, but even now that he's doing motivational speaking and podcasting and YouTube videos, etc., and has become, a paid speaker and business coach, very well paid. He still has a side hustle selling wheels, DV8 motoring. I have no problem promoting Tony. DV8 motoring, not cheap wheels. You're gonna be $10,000 into a set, but as he commonly says on his podcast, sometimes the more money somebody's paying you, the less they pester you. It's one of those odd things. Is if you try to sell yourself short and get people because you're cheap, it's going to cost you money in the long run. It's better to have one high-paying customer than 15 low-paying.
No truer words have ever been spoken.
Oh, well, you said, Hot John earlier or something. I was doing my posing.
Yeah, if you could just move to your right, things would look a lot better. There we go. There we go. Now it looks better.
This is YouTube coaching, social media. Topic, person. So,
and then stand in front of the person.
Well, it's the, what do I want to say? I can't remember what it's called on YouTube, but it's that thumbnail. That's what you got to have in the thumbnail. I probably should have made her bigger, maybe bigger in some other areas, but so what's some other, things we can do as a side hustle. I mean, I've worked as a mechanic on the side. I bought into an appraisal franchise and did appraisals for 10, 15 years, $600,000 a month. Extra 12 grand a year is nice. I always think my side hustle needs to cover its expenses and a car payment. That's how I always look at money that's coming in through a side hustle. No driving gloves is a hobby and a passion, and we make a little bit of money. And I was watching a YouTube video this week on how quickly can you make your first $1,000. And I got looking at No Driving Gloves books. While we've never made a profit, it took us about 4.5 years to make our first $1,000. So, now speaking of that,
back into the show.
Speaking of that, just go ahead and over here you can buy us a coffee and help contribute to that. Let's get to our first second 1,000 and listen for you.
So, yeah, I mean, talking about that, John, obviously, we've all got mechanical abilities, a side hustle as a mechanic, things like that. And, it's something that I'm trying to think of where to go with this, but, using the knowledge and the skills you have from your day-to-day job, your education, all of those things is a good way to start a side hustle as well. And, John, you said it, you do mechanical work, or you did mechanical work at one time, making some side money, in my field, the museum field. And John, you were in the museum field for a while, but one thing that we all know in the museum world is, well, pretty much every museum that exists is short staffed. None of us have enough staff. So, there's a number of people that work in the museum field, and all areas of the museum field, not just automotive. This is, history museums, art museums, everywhere, that often have side hustle, businesses that they offer consulting services to other institutions. They may offer collections management, services. And that's one of the things we've talked a little bit on the show. I'm starting this year, I got my LLC set up, all those things, to where I can offer consulting, services to museums. I'm also doing conservation and preservation services. So whether it's actual treatments, just assessments, even consulting, on projects and assisting with any type of preservation or conservation, restoration, collections management, things like that. It's one of the things I'm starting to branch into as a side hustle, side business to get going and make a few bucks on the side, which never hurts.
I just want to know where you find the time. That's what's kept me out of side hustles all these years, is like, I don't have a side in which to hustle. I have to devote all my time to the career and the family.
Why do you think I constantly am sipping through my No Driving Gloves thermo cup, which is available if you contact me directly at producer No Driving Gloves? These are always full of Mountain Dew.
So you just have given up on sleep.
Yes. I learned a long time ago. Somebody once told me, there's plenty of time to sleep when you're dead. And I'm going to find out.
It's true.
I usually have much Mountain Dew. It'll probably be soon.
Yeah, I usually find the time by just pointing at a clock. There's time right there on that clock.
I have so many things I like to do, and side hustle. Most of the listeners know I travel for my job. I'm in a hotel 6 to 10 nights a month. I use a lot of that time for podcast production, watching my YouTube videos for education. I use the 4,000 miles I'm on a road a month to listen to podcasts about woodworking, about cars, about podcasts about podcasting. So you find the places, and I sit here and go, I really want a new job, but if I actually got a real 40-hour week job, I'm not sure I would gain more time to do stuff, because then I would have, kind of more free time, which might get occupied. You just learn to find it. I mean, I'm in a dilemma now. I'll only work about 2 hours tomorrow, and then I'll probably spend most of the day in my wood shop. But on the side part, I've also have booths that I sell things in, and go back to selling car parts and things like that I actually got a new one. I've got the shelving in there after 3 weeks. Now I've got to price and get merchandise in there, so it starts paying for itself. So I'm trying to do woodworking totally for fun, but I've got to give up a little bit of fun to make the money, and you just 6 of one, half a dozen of another. And it's, and then Derek's got the challenge of having a wife and kids. I'm assuming you're in the similar position, Dave, as we talked a little bit before the show with traveling and visiting places. And, I have a girlfriend. Fortunately, I guess I'm a dink, so I have the dual income, no kids. I don't have the kids to take time away, which that was a choice I made for myself. And it just, it's one of those things. I do understand children and raising kids. A lot of people enjoy it, and it takes up a ton of time and a ton of money. And
then you need the side hustle because it takes up a ton of your money.
Yeah, I mean, I lived my youth. My dad was self-employed from 1977 to this day, really. And from the time I was 5-6 years old to the time I moved out of state when I was 25, it was hard to see my dad. He was working 10, 12 hours a day. And I mean, fortunately, the business for a long time was based out of the house. And my mom was the billing clerk for it. And she was based in the house all the time. So she had one of those original work from home. But yeah, I mean, you choose to make sacrifices. And that's kind of why we wanted to talk side hustles with cars, because we enjoy cars. And I always said with my career, when people would talk to me when I was at Barbers or White Post or with a conservation company, man, I can't wait to retire to do what you do. And after hearing that for 10 or 12 years, it finally clicked in my head. I'm spending my youth doing and getting paid doing for what people want to save up and retire to do. So I'm pretty damn lucky. Now I'm getting close to retirement age, and man, maybe I should have worked a little bit harder so I could be a little bit more comfortable in retirement instead of shucking and jiving every Thursday night on a podcast to buy coffees. But you're
No,
right. I mean,
that's
there's challenges of always finding money and time.
and that is a big problem of the field that you and you were in for a while, John, and that I am still in, is that, most museums, most of these conservation, studios, places like that, they're either a nonprofit or most of their work comes from nonprofits. So there isn't a lot of money flowing inside of these institutions, not unless you're one of the really, really major ones. And even those, there's not a lot of money flowing. And the nonprofit world, it's one thing I hear it a lot too, like, oh man, you get to work with these cool old cars and historic artifacts, and man, I can't wait till I can retire and volunteer at that and get to do some of that. It's like, yeah, you get the chance to retire to do it. I have fun doing what I'm doing, but I certainly am not making the kind of money that is going to provide for some lavish retirement in the future or anything like that. So yeah, I hear the same thing, John, and I kind of think the same way. I'm like, yeah, but it's probably not really worth it in the end.
You give up your $250,000 a year job with bonuses and come here and do this for $60,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no problem. You can have this job. You just make a sacrifice or decide what to do there.
Yeah. Buy a van and go park it by the river, because that's where you're going to do it.
I say it is after 9:30. Speaking of vans, vans are cool.
Yeah, but you like those like minivans that are all hopped up and.
Hey, I watched Get Shorty the other night in a hotel, and nothing beats it when Danny DeVito comes out and John Travolta's driving that blacked out Oldsmobile Silhouette. And he goes, man, is this your ride, Chili? It is. Can I take it for a spin? And then later on in the movie, Danny DeVito playing this multimillionaire actor is buzzing around in his Oldsmobile Silhouette. They showed the cool power door and that. And Han from Fast and the Furious, in real life, his daily driver is a Toyota Sienna. So. And he loves it. And my boss at Barber's daily driver is a Mini.
I was just at the Carlisle Truck Nationals in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And despite the name, there were a ton of vans there, like full custom, like 70s with the bubble windows and the shag carpets. And that was a group of people that was having a really good time. Like it's not personally where I'm at in the automotive hobby, but I was kind of jealous because they just looked like they were having a lot of fun. So, but I also know how difficult it is to actually change the spark plugs in a van. So I'm not ever owning a van if I can avoid it.
I'm waiting to see like the 77 Dodge Street van with the Tesla drivetrain under it.
It probably is coming or is already out there. I mean, I feel like
somebody's had to have done it.
There's a Tesla powered everything at this point. It's the aftermarket's favorite EV donor.
Yeah, but who's going to put an 70s Shagan wagon on a Tesla platform? I mean, it's really, really getting out there. And that shag carpeting is pretty damn flammable, especially if you're using the real stuff from the 70s.
I mean, that's the good stuff, man. You got to get the period correct melty shag.
Well,
there's a good side hustle though. There's a good side hustle in there, though. The airbrushing and the pinstriping of those vans to make them look like 70s era. That'd be a good side hustle. If you have the talent, if you're artistic enough, you could start doing vans.
Well, taking that to the serious point, Derek. I'll say taking Derek to the serious point. That used to be a side hustle, the pinstripers and the airbrushing.
Yeah, believe it or not, my dad did that in the 70s. That was one of his side hustles.
So did mine.
Man.
that side hustle has now become a lot of these vinyl guys with vinyl wrapping and the vinyl graphics they add to their cars. And, it still exists. It's just changed with time and the technology. And I have a good friend who wraps vehicles and raps on a very high level, makes pretty good money doing it. And he's always begging, hey, does somebody want to come work with me for a week and I'll teach you how to do this? And then you could take some of his workload off of him. So you could easily turn that into a full-time career. I just don't have 2 or 3 weeks to take off to learn it and then develop the business. It's where.
Well, isn't that funny? Because if you're good enough at some of these side hustles, they suddenly become your main hustle. Like I can think of a couple pinstripers and sign painters who like suddenly discovered that they had so much work that it was better for them to actually quit their day job and do that full time. And if you've got a rare in-demand talent like that, I think it's real easy to happen. On the flip side, what's a thing that virtually anybody can do as long as they're willing to put in the effort and can be quite lucrative? Automobile detailing. That's $100 a pop easily most places. And, people want that stuff cleaned all the time. And, that's a great thing for younger people too. Like, any kid who's interested in cleaning cars has got an automatic guaranteed cash income stream, at least in the good weather. And if they can find a place to do it inside all year round.
If you listen to the audio podcast, I'm going to add an interview at the end of this. So it's going to go a little bit long that I did at a local car event with a 17-year-old who's detailing the 6-figure cars now in town, has a very good presence. And it's just getting out there and doing it. I hate, I'm an auto detailer and I'll charge you $150 and I'll clay bar your car and that. And they really don't have any training and experience. And there's so much damage you can do to somebody's car if you do it wrong.
Yeah, I'm thinking interiors mostly, but yeah,
but
is a very specialized thing.
But if you take a little bit of time and pay a little bit of attention, and a lot of these detail guys will teach you how to do it. We've got that kid's kind of new in town. We've got another guy that is great in town, but he's grown up a little bit and now he's flipping houses for a living. He took his detailing business. Now he's buying real estate and flipping houses. So his car business, this kid's goals be a multimillionaire by 30, and he's well on his way. Then I've got another friend in town that took his detailing business and now he details Lear jets. That's all he does is jets, private jets. Ooh. It's, I guess, private jets and helicopters. But that is, if you do it right and you prove yourself, you just can't be the guy that's advertising on Facebook Marketplace. I'll come wash your car with a clay bar and, what I want to say, and paint correction for $100. That's, learn. Griot's Garage used to offer a car wax. I believe it was Griot's, and it was $4,000 or $5,000 for this wax. However, it had lifetime. You could get it refilled for life, and this was maybe 15, 20 years ago. I need to reach out to Mark and find out. But detailers loved it because it was a good product. And guess what? After that initial investment, they had no more costs for the wax they were using. Now, at this point, we're well beyond that with PPF and ceramic coatings and things like that. But, one I wanted to throw out, and it's one you don't think of, and it's not a good side hustle for money, and Derek might have a comment on it, is a museum docent. You want to get into the hobby and you want to be, a few hours a week, or, I can't think of, rub shoulders with some of the car people in town, or, being a museum docent is always kind of a funny thing. And there's days that I think that would be a fun job for me to go back to, because I don't want to work at a museum again. I really don't want to work again, but being a docent would be nice. But I do fall into that question from Dave, time. But what do you think of a museum docent as a side hustle?
Well, I guess, yeah, I maybe need to think about a side hustle differently than I normally do. Technically, yes, if it's just a part-time job that you're using to get into something else, and be around car people in an automotive museum, I suppose you're going to make a little money on the side, and it would be technically a side hustle. So, I mean, I guess it sounds like a pretty boring side hustle to me.
That's your day job.
Well, I mean, docent is a fairly antiquated term in the museum world nowadays, but a presenter, a historic presenter, interpreter, same thing as a docent, right? Just the more modern terminology most museums are using. But that's where I started my museum career, so I'm kind of like, side hustle. That's like foot in the door job for a college kid trying to get into the museum world and pester the objects conservator that was in charge of the transportation collections at the Henry Ford. That's what those positions are for.
Oh, see, I look at it as almost the exact opposite. I look at it for that guy that's in his late 50s and beyond, that's retired, that has a few extra hours a week but wants to stay involved with the car clubs and get out there. And I use a story, and it's not car related, but when my grandfather was roughly 55, 56, he worked for International Harvester and been there his entire career, and they closed, and he took early retirement in that, and he was going nuts because he had nothing to do. And my dad said, well, why don't you come down and work for me one day a week and pay my bills? Because that's what he did at International Harvester. He was accounts payable. After that, to the day he died, he was the busiest man on the planet. It gives you something to plan your week around. So it's not always about money. It's take that Wednesday and volunteer at your museum, and then all of a sudden you can plan your week around the museum, and then you're going to start thinking, man, do I really have time to still be a docent? Because I got to go to Wood Club on Monday, and I've got to go hang out with the guys and walk the mall on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's not getting the benefit in cash. And sometimes we forget that. I mean, the world's not all about making money. It's enjoying yourself and having a good time. And I think that's something to look at as a side hustle that is personally, physically, mentally beneficial to you, not necessarily financially beneficial to you, but keeps your head in the right space.
I like that.
Who has
all
the
paradigm
podcast?
You're standing the paradigm on the head, which is, we live in a day and age where we're all expected to monetize our hobbies into side hustles. So it is kind of nice to think in terms of what would be fun just to devote the time and then get some sort of non-monetary compensation for it. Because it's true, like there's a lot of people who want to do this stuff and not a lot of people who want to pay big money to have it done. So if you're not looking to get rich, there's lots of stuff to do. I mean, yeah, volunteers at museums, maybe you get a few bucks thrown at you. Heck, get involved with your car club, put on a show, put on a cruise. There's lots of stuff to be done. And yeah, if you're about to retire, if you're lucky enough to retire, don't stop doing stuff, because that's a quick route to the grave.
That's
and
true, yeah.
I've said it again in conjunction with this Mob Inc. group that's in town, which has been a car club since the early 2000s. And it used to be Men of Birmingham and Nice Cars. And now it's Motorists of Birmingham and Nice Cars. And it's kind of taken on this new aspect, name, become an LLC, does this show once a month because one of the primary members sold his business a year ago. And I don't want to, people that know him knows he has money. He did not sell his business for $1.95, and I think he got bored and he needed something to do and put his life around, because in the early days, as this was forming, this late fall or late winter, early spring, he was so busy, and he still is. It keeps him occupied, and he's not making any money off of it. He just needed something to do after building a multi-million-dollar company that he sold for millions of dollars, from the time he built it, from the time he was 17 to the day he sold it a couple of years ago. And he's just a few years older than me. He worked. And I always said I would never want a job working for this man because of what he demands. He would be almost impossible to work for, in my mind. I don't want to work that hard, and it's bad to say, but when you want to talk about driven, he's one of the most driven men, and I have the utmost respect for him. And everybody in town knows who he is, and he has a passion for cars, but he did put that aside to take care of his kids. He woke up one day and realized my daughters are becoming teenagers and I only have a few years left with them. And he stepped back a little bit from the car hobby and took the family and the business. And now he's got rid of the business, still does the family stuff and the car stuff. So it's exactly that. It's not all about money.
That is so true. Yeah, it's not. Money is nice. Money helps. Money can help you do a lot of things, especially with family. But it's not worth throwing everything else away just to have money, because you make all the money, but you spend all the time making the money. When are you ever going to use it? When are you going to ever have any experiences with it? The experiences are often worth more.
Isn't this an Eagles song? You can spend all your time, all your love making money, or you can spend all your time making love. Something. Take it to the limit one more time.
Oh yeah. But we don't talk about music on the podcast because we don't want to.
Well, I thought you couldn't play music, but I mean, we can talk about it.
No, and I actually brought that up as we wrap up the show. I brought that up on Facebook
and actually,
this week.
I'm going to jump in because, what we can do is John often will sing it, but his singing is so bad that nobody recognizes the song, so we don't get in trouble.
Well, that's what I was going for when I mangled the quote there. So,
yeah.
Oh, you wanted me to sing?
No.
Yeah.
Sing.
Just trying to help.
Sing a song. No, I'm surrounded by, we'll say, Muzak a lot of the times. And for some reason, this one chain store is stuck on playing George Harrison. I Got My Mind Set on You. And I'm listening to it and I put this up on Facebook and asked for some other suggestions, and look up the post. It's from, put it up 5 days ago. But you really got to think about it. But somebody asked a question on a Rebody Facebook page that I am, and he wants to basically put a Gunter's Works nose and wide body 911 tail and all this stuff on a 986 Boxster. And he goes, what does it take to do this? And I said, George Harrison told you. It's going to take money, a whole lot of spending money. It's going to take plenty of money to do it right, child. It's going to take time, a whole lot of precious time. It's going to take patience and time to do it right, child. So, and that, I think that sums up the car hobby. I think everybody thinks this is a love song or something. This is George Harrison writing about cars. And I'm going to go to my grave saying that. So anything else here? Listeners that catch this, give us some feedback on what you think of Dave. He's a little quiet and not quite used to us yet. But
oh, come on, he's added a ton tonight, and he wasn't.
He probably did when I couldn't hear.
For like 15 minutes, he was the one carrying the show while you were being quiet.
Well, I just went away.
I thank you guys so much for having me on. I hope you will continue to have me on occasion.
No. We enjoyed having you, and we'll keep working with this experiment. But is there anything else we want to add to this, or otherwise we were going to cut it a little bit short? We had a ton of viewers, but nobody wanted to talk to us.
Fine, be that
way. The last the last hustle that I could think of was, if you like driving, there's always a demand for car hauling cross country, and it's an interesting way to see the country. You get your diesel dually fifth wheel in your gooseneck trailer and you haul a few cars from one side of the country to the other, pick up a few bucks, see some things, and spend some time behind the wheel listening to podcasts if that's your deal.
Actually, you say that about car hauling, but there's actually a lot of dealerships and the car companies that use porters. You can become a porter, and they'll take you to, the dealership will take you up to where the vehicles are parked, and they'll caravan all the vehicles back down to a dealership, or you might have to move one vehicle from a dealer to another dealer. And I mean, that's a lot of times people that are just part-time, the kind of side hustle. I think a lot of retired gentlemen, I knew a couple of retired gentlemen that did that. And you get to drive various types of cars. So you get an experience in different type of cars. Actually, one of the guys I knew, somehow he was hooked up with he somehow got into the Rolls Bentley groups, and he would actually go to the port and pick up like a Rolls or a Bentley from port. He'd be the one representing the dealership, pick it up at the port, and then drive it and deliver it to the owner. So there's, I don't know how many of them do it and how in depth, but I still see those caravans of vehicles being driven around. So
you've got the dealers that do it, and the rental car companies are always doing it as they're shifting inventory and things like that. I see ads for that. It doesn't pay a lot, but again, if you're doing it as a side hustle and, maybe you can do it 2 days a week or you do it on the weekend, it's one of those fun things. And one of the companies I consulted with a few years back when I was doing my consulting, one of their side hustle businesses to the main business is transporting cars. And now they had a really cool hauler to do it with, but now they're doing it with a couple of trailers and stuff. It's expanded. It's become a lot more than we're just moving Ferraris from Birmingham to Atlanta to get serviced. They're delivering cars everywhere. Matter of fact, latest Instagram post, they delivered a Ferrari 599 GTO up into your neck of the woods, Derek. And then they were dropping something else off, I think, here in Birmingham. It's, there is a demand for it.
You're saying they delivered it? It never showed up. I'm going to have to call them. I'm upset.
I said your neck of the woods, not your neck. Better go check your neighbor's house.
It's probably where it is.
So, well, I'm going to wrap it up unless anybody else got anything to say.
I mean, just what I always say, John, which is, thanks for joining us on a Thursday night. If you guys are enjoying No Driving Gloves and being part of the No Driving Gloves community, obviously find us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, all those wonderful places, YouTube. While you're watching us on the live stream, click the little bell thing that you're supposed to click, give us some likes. As we already mentioned in the show, buy us a coffee, buy us multiple coffees, whatever you want to do. And of course, if you want to see us continue to have a bigger No Driving Gloves community, there's one thing you can do, and that is help us grow, share the show.
Yep. And with that, as I always say, it's time to get off your ass and go burn some gas, because we are, well, if I hit the button, there we go. We are out.